Feel that shimmy? Your hind leg's trying out like your friend.
What do I do?
Stop steering and start driving. This ain't no dead piece of metal. Car's a living, breathing thing. Now she's alive. Feel her talk to her. Tell her what she wants, what she needs. All you gotta do is listen. Close your eyes. Listen.
Right, welcome everyone. This is episode 65 of the Comics in Motion podcast. I am Chris Phelps, and my co-host and very good friend is Mr. Dave Horrocks.
Hi, Chris, and hello to our listeners out there. Welcome to Comics in Motion. What we like to do here is we like to review movies and TV shows that are based on comic books. Myself, I'll be reviewing from the perspective of a long-time comic book reader.
And I'll be reviewing from the TV and movie perspective.
And what we also like to do is we also like to spoil the hell out of everything we review. So if you haven't watched our choice of the week, then we'd advise you to proceed with caution. Wouldn't we, Chris? Because we wouldn't want to spoil anything about this one. And what we also like to do, or we like you to do, is if you can head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcast catcher of choice and drop us a 5-star review. This really helps us to grow the show and gets us out there to other listeners. Now, Chris.
You've done me there, Dave.
Yes. We've just had some massive news, so this is no secret. It's not a surprise, but it's finally happened. Disney have finally acquired 21st Century Fox for apparently, I see different figures, but the most common one I see is $71.3 billion. So, and with that, they get things like X-Men, Deadpool, Fantastic Four, as well as, you know, things like, is it Alien and Family Guy, The Simpsons, all of this, a whole load of stuff. They've also got, they've doubled their share in Hulu. So that's up to 30% now. And we were talking a few weeks ago about whether that would, eventually turn into Disney's streaming service. You know, they just buy more and more of it. So, I mean, what do you reckon to that news?
I think it's great news, Dave. We've yearned, haven't we, for an X-Men, some sort of crossover with the Avengers. You can't have that world without the X-Men somewhere in there. And obviously it's been totally, they've never been mentioned. There's been no sort of even talk of them. The only thing that's ever mentioned anything like that is Deadpool, because obviously that's just breaking the fourth wall down. I did see Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool with his Mickey Mouse ears on.
Absolutely brilliant. I do wonder, you know, how long has he had that ready and waiting to go? You know? But again, he just absolutely nails it. You know, it's like, right, yep, we're all on the Disney train. He's got the Mickey Mouse ears and everything. So, you know, just absolutely brilliant. Best response I've seen that.
Yeah, Dave, I know people say, it's, you know, they're monopolising it and that, but for us as fans of comic book-based origin movies, TV shows, it's only a good thing, because in that world, they should be mentioned. The X-Men should be mentioned in the Avengers or vice versa. And even down to the Netflix stuff we've seen where, you know, things like Daredevil, The Punisher, they're all based around and after the Avengers, but you're like, there's no continuity at all in any of it. There's not even any mention, but we're supposed to believe that that's happening after Thanos has come and done this, or Loki's come down in the first Avengers, you know, for the Tesseract and that. It doesn't make any continuity sense if you understand what I'm saying. So for me, I think it'll just break a few of the walls down where some of the stories you'll get a little nod somewhere to something that's happened in another film, because we're not daft. The audience are not daft, are they, Dave? We're all fans of Marvel stuff, so as much as DC. So it should make sense more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. I think, you know, what we saw last year with Avengers Infinity War was something we'd never seen before, you know, in terms of that amount of characters and heroes all thrown together to make, you know, one single movie. It'd never been done before. When you introduce the X-Men universe as well, and I will call it a universe because there's loads of them, and the Fantastic Four as well, you know, adding those in, is going to make it potentially huge. So we'll see how that does go. But I did create a quick little poll. I just made it a really short one, so we'd have the results in by the time we recorded. And it was basically, now the deal's gone through, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it an indifferent thing? And then just because I was amusing myself, quite honestly, I put option 4, is it Ben Grimm, the thing? And someone asked this, like, does that mean is it grim? And it's just, no, it's me just messing about, to be honest. Now, overriding, or, well, just edging it, I guess, at 39%, our listeners, or our followers at least, said it was a bad thing. Now, it was a good thing, came in very closely behind at 33%. But, I thought that was interesting that, a lot of people, I think, probably are concerned about the diversity. So if you have something like Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds had enough, of a problem trying to bring that to the screen, didn't he, with Fox? Yeah. Would Disney have ever done something like that? I'm not sure. It's not, I've not seen any articles or anything on it, but, the one that comes to my mind is like something like Family Guy. It doesn't strike me as being very Disney. So what happens to things like that? Are they going to carry on? I wonder, though, are they going to create something different? Are they going to maybe keep that Fox brand or call it something else? Remember, they own Touchstone Pictures, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they have done, under the Disney banner, they have done some other stuff that isn't what you would call classic Disney. So I just hope there's something like that, because I think it's a good thing, right? Overriding. But I am a little bit concerned that it eliminates the diversity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, Dave, the only thing where I will cross the line and say, right, that's enough, is some stupid Avengers Star Wars crossover. Other than that, they can do what the hell they want with all these things. I mean, that would be a bit of a stretch, wouldn't it? So, or
an Alien versus Predator meets Kevin in Home Alone. There are so many permutations. Mind you, Fox could have done that anyway, couldn't they? So
yeah, but I agree. It's fine unless they just start going film crazy and doing what they've done with Star Wars, where they're a bit oversaturating it at the moment with just constant origin films and things like that. So I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I do think that, as we said a few episodes ago regarding X-Men, and when we had Leo on about the trailer for X-Men, Dark Phoenix, it might not be a bad thing, Dave, because they might finally do justice to the X-Men, because it's been very lukewarm, hasn't it, with X-Men? We've had some cracking films in the X-Men series from Fox, but then we've had some proper duds as well, haven't we? So, and I'm not saying all the Marvel stuff's been fantastic, but I think the production, the way they produce them, is a bit more true to the comic origins. So we'll see what comes down the line.
I think the X-Men movies probably get a bit of a rough ride because of the Marvel movies and the fact they have done, a pretty good job in recent years. I think the X-Men movies get looked down on. And they have been a little bit hit and miss. They probably had as many misses as they have had hits. But I really enjoyed, certainly the first 2 X-Men that came out. I thought they were a step above. You had that, plus the Sam Raimi Spider-Man that came out, in the early 2000s. You had, the first couple of movies for Spider-Man, the first couple for X-Men. I thought they were really good. And it was only when you get you get up to 2008 where you get into, Dark Knight's released, you get Iron Man released, and then the game changes again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like you. I love X-Men. I love Wolverine. So it's pretty much, I can watch all them films more than anything, Dave. So it's subjective. People, I think, is the X-Men Last Stand, I think, is one of the best ones they've done, recent ones for me. I think that's...
Are you sure?
No, is it
X-Men 3? No. Days of Future Past. Well, I think, for me, one of the movies I can watch again and again is X-Men First Class. because they took the essence of the very first X-Men story, where you had that original X-Men team. It was written by Stan Lee, stolen from DC's Doom Patrol, probably. Yeah. But you kind of had the essence of that, okay, with different characters. It was produced by Matthew Vaughn as well, so we discussed that, I'm sure, when we discussed Kingsman. And I like, quite a lot of his movies. But, I thought, and it took that team, where you've got Fassbender and James McAvoy, and it kind of, you had this whole crossover with the old Patrick Stewart-led X-Men as well. I thought, they really came back to form then. And then they dropped the ball with Apocalypse, Yeah. So, again, that's why I say, the Wolverine series, Wolverine Origins, the Wolverine, and then you had Logan. That's a little bit up and down, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think they've definitely had movies that I can go back and watch and enjoy. But like I say, who knows where they're going to start? And I saw someone tweeted out. So the whole end credit shawarma scene in the first Avengers. Well, they filmed that, and then 4 weeks later. So they filmed it, I think, at the London premiere, and it was something like that. And then they released it in America 4 weeks later, and then that was part of the end credit scene. So it's just 4 weeks. We're 4 weeks away from when Dark Phoenix gets released.
Right.
So could there be something in that, Because obviously it's all officially released now. The news that it's all signed and sealed. Behind the scenes, they'll have been working on this for ages. And I don't just mean the solicitors. Everyone would have been preparing themselves for what's to come. So could we see something in Dark Phoenix that just gives a peek into the MCU?
No, good call, Dave. Good call.
Well, let's see. Another poll that is also going on at the minute, Chris, is for what are we going to review next week? Now, inspiration from this came from essentially Captain Marvel, set in 1995. So I went back, had a look. Okay, what kind of comic book movies did we have in 1995? So option one, we had Tank Girl. Then we had Batman Forever. We had Casper. Wasn't really expecting a lot of votes for Casper, to be honest, and it's kind of turning out that way. And then we had Mallrats as well. So not really a comic book movie, but that was the Stan Lee cameo, wasn't it? He was reading the Mallrats script. And again, my favourite Stan Lee cameo in Mallrats. So I wanted to chuck that in there because that was released in 1995 as well. At the minute, we've got Batman Forever steaming ahead with 47%. So we've got a day left, but quite honestly, I don't think anyone's going to catch Batman Forever there.
Is that the one with Jim Carrey as the Riddler?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. And Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face.
Yep.
Oh, I went to the cinema to watch that. Val Kilmer, isn't it? Yeah. I had it on video. I actually bought that on video years ago, Dave. I had quite a few of them Batmans from the 90s as well. I got rid of them, unfortunately. But, I'll be up for that. Like I say, I've probably not watched it for about 15 years, so I'll be interested.
I've not watched it for a long, long time. Drew Barrymore was in it?
Yeah.
Jon Favreau?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, there's a who's who in these films, Dave.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, as well, you've got, I must admit, obviously, Jim Carrey in this one, in 95, he's actually channeling inner Matt Frewer, isn't he? So it'll be quite interesting to watch that.
Yeah. I think that, it was funny. Where was it? Was it YouTube or someone was commenting? And because we'd commented that on Generation X that, Matt Frewer was doing a Jim Carrey impression. And then someone has said, well, actually, it's Jim Carrey doing a Max Headroom / Matt Frewer
impression.
What he was doing at his height was just copying off kind of Max Headroom and Matt Frewer. So,
I'd go.
Who knows?
Yeah, I'd go with our original theory when we did the Fantastic Four, the X-Men film, Dave. I did Generation X. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, Dave, we've had a question again from one of our listeners, and this is from Tony Paddy Burke, who gave us a question a few weeks ago regarding, the question he told us what his favourite film was. And it was quite a long explanation he sent over to us, but the top and tail of it is, and I'm setting you up for this, Dave, because I really have no origins to this character other than the Avengers films, but how can such a powerful being as Vision be so useless in the movies? Now, I don't know any background in the comics, so I didn't know if you knew the origin of the character.
He is fairly powerful, and I don't think the question was necessarily about Vision in the comics. I mean, I've got to say, I'm not a massive fan. Just, he's in the comics, he's from the future. I don't particularly like the look of him. For me, he's one of those second tier Avengers, so when you don't have Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, he's kind of there with Ant-Man and the Wasp and what have you. So he's not one of my favorite characters, to be honest. But I think what Tony was asking, so in Age of Ultron, they obviously made quite a big deal about Vision. And then there's, he was obviously fairly powerful. He's got one of the Infinity Stones in his head. There was the scene, wasn't there, where everyone's trying to pick up the hammer in Age of Ultron?
Yeah.
And I quite like that scene, actually. It just, end of party, just messing about kind of thing. And then later in the movie, he just picks it up, to prove that essentially he's worthy. So he played quite a big role in that movie, but then since then, he's not really done anything. No. In Captain America Civil War, he was kind of taken out fairly easily by the Scarlet Witch. And then in Infinity War, he didn't really do a lot there. He was fairly useless, wasn't he? He just, they had the battle up in Scotland and they required Captain America, Black Widow, and the Falcon. So okay, Captain America's got the super serum, but, the other two are just human beings, aren't they?
Yeah.
So coming to save the Vision, it just, I know why they do it, it's for the story, but I can see Tony's point there, that they're writing him as if he's kind of underpowered, really.
Yeah, because obviously Thanos wants the Infinity Stone off him as well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
As well, because he's injured, you're right? The fight in Scotland, he's injured pretty much straight away in the film, isn't he? And after that, he's like the walking wounded, isn't he, all the way through? He never goes to his full potential.
Everyone kind of has to protect him, and then when they get to Wakanda, they're trying to remove the stone from his head, and he ends up joining the battle, but then he just brings himself out and has the stone taken off him. So, I guess he's just one of those casualties that, they're not really... Look, there's so many characters. I think there's going to be some casualties, isn't there?
Yeah.
You're going to have some characters that get more airtime and are more central to the plot than some of the others are.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Good point.
So what I would say as well, you've got Paul Bettany there. So he was there right at the start, wasn't he, as Jarvis?
Yep.
So in Iron Man, the first one in 2008. So, we'll see if he's back. I know after Infinity War, everyone was saying, look, he's not dusted. So clearly he's just going to be dead. But we're going to get this Scarlet Witch and Vision series, aren't we? So he's obviously going to come back in some form.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Again, another offshoot already, Dave, with some more characters. And we're getting a Loki one, aren't we, as well, which we've mentioned before.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah. Now, we've got some DC news, haven't we, this week, Dave, as well? Yeah,
so interesting goings on over at Warner Brothers again, and it does seem a little bit ad hoc. But what I found quite funny, or not funny, but funny in a depressing, I might just want to chuck myself out of a window funny.
I know.
that kind of funny is that Warner Brothers are thinking of recasting Flash. So Ezra Miller has decided to try and write his own script in an attempt to basically keep the role. Now, the first problem is they've only just cast him. Again, he's not had anything. So why are they looking to recast him already?
Yeah, this is a bit like, to be fair, I think listening back myself to the point, what you said about Ben Affleck, Dave, he's not had his own origin film. So is this an indication of they realise that by casting him as the Flash, he's too weak? He's not, the dynamics aren't right for what they want going forward. Is it a sort of nod to the fact that we've got the Batman film being put in pre-production soon and there's going to be a different Batman? Is it something to do with that? I don't understand it. And I didn't think he was a bad character in the Justice League, if I'm being honest. I just think it was down to the poor script and that. But like you've said, Dave, Marvel seem to have everything together. We know that every film has been, A-star approved on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, but we know that they're not that far off and that formula works. DC don't seem to know what they want to do at the moment with some of the characters, and that's a shame, really, considering as well with Shazam being out in a few weeks, and that's been actually testing really, really good. So I don't know, it's a shame. And to be fair, Dave, Flash for me has always been a peripheral figure, a bit like you were saying about Vision in DC. I've never really bought into him as a wholehearted character. I know there hasn't been a lot of attention TV series wise as such. I know there's a Flash series, but I mean, on the film and stuff like that, he's always been a low budget sort of secondary hero, hasn't he? So
it's interesting that, because I must admit Flash was one of my favourites, to be honest. Loved that there was a series that came out in the 90s with John Wesley Shipp, like the new series that they got on CW. So I think Grant Gustin, again, for the tone of the TV series, I think he gets a bit of stick. The fact that he's not blonde, I know people don't like that, but I think he plays a great character. But again, it was another one of those odd ones for me where they said, "Oh no, well, in the movie world, we're going to cast, Ezra Miller because it's a different tone to the TV." And it's like, well, okay, all right then. But then, to basically recast him already, it just seems so ad hoc, and there's no joined up thinking at all. And I know they've said they just want to concentrate on individual stories. Then do it for different characters. Don't just keep recasting every couple of years. And the poor bloke, like I say, he's had a few cameos, hasn't he? He didn't have that big a role in Justice League.
Yeah.
So, he's hardly done it. He is the Flash, or the movie Flash, for the last few years. But he's not even had his own movie or a big part in a movie or a few movies. So, it's just sort yourself out, Warner Brothers. You're doing my head in. Seriously. I mean, I think, so Shazam, it looks great. I think it's tested great. And I'm just so disappointed. We all want these movies to be great. And it's just, they can't seem to sort themselves out.
Yeah. I agree. And we've mentioned this loads of times on the podcast. And, myself, I've said to you before, I'm a DC fanboy over Marvel. I always have been. But I think the content can't be sniffed at, can it really, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just totally night and day. Absolutely. Anything else caught your eye, Dave?
Well, just the Batman script that Matt Reeves is writing, so it's rumoured to be set in the 90s. I can't think where they've got that idea from. I don't know why, again, it's set in the 90s, but again, maybe they're going to... I don't know. I give up, Chris. Why are they setting in the 90s? Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's like the new 70s, I suppose, isn't it now? We for me, the 90s was only a few years ago, Dave, so...
there is that as well.
Yeah, I know. You do think that, though, don't you? Because that's when we both left school and that, so I left school in 95, so it's like... Hello, I was 16 and I'm 40 now, so it doesn't seem that long ago. And I think we know why they're doing it, obviously Captain Marvel or whatever, but just...
I think it might be... I was being a bit facetious. I don't think they're just straight copying Captain Marvel, but it is a little bit strange that the news about it being set in the 90s comes out, a week after, or a couple of weeks after Captain Marvel was released. There must be, the only reason to do it, I would think, is, okay, you're going to set it in the 90s because at some point, this is going to be the early Batman again, isn't it? It's going to be like Batman Begins, but it's going to focus on the detective side because we've never really explored that in the Batman movies.
No. And you've mentioned this before about his detective work, haven't you, as well?
Yeah. And by God, if I see the Waynes get killed again, I'm going to walk out the cinema at that point.
Yeah, as long as it's not the Joker doing it, like in the original Batman.
In the 89 one, yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you. You know I love the Batman and the Dark Knight stuff, and even the old Batman stuff. And like I say, Batman Forever, I've watched it. You know, I've had them on video. I've had them all. The George Clooney one I went to the cinema to watch, even though it was absolutely terrible. But yeah, we don't need to see it. How many times can we tell them that they decided to go down a stupid alleyway at the back of an opera house in the dodgiest alleyway you've ever seen in your life to then get mugged? I mean, who would have thought the chances of that, Dave? You know what I mean? So yeah, just skip along that. Now, Dave, just before we go on to what we're going to review in the comic background, can I just give 2 honorary mentions very quickly?
Of course.
I've just seen the trailer for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't know if you've caught it, Dave. It's just been released in the last couple of hours. Quentin Tarantino's new film. It's not.
I did see that it was released. I haven't watched it yet, though.
Right. Well, Margot Robbie, we're on it all day long. But Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, brilliant. But Dave, you've got to see. There's a guy there. There's a Bruce Lee scene. You want to see the guy who they've cast to be Bruce Lee. It actually just looks like Bruce Lee. It's unbelievable, wow. Dave. And for anyone listening, give it. I mean, probably if you're on social media, you can't miss it. It's all over there at the minute. It looks really good, Dave. It looks like it could be another Tarantino special. It looks fantastic. I think the premise is Brad Pitt is Leonardo DiCaprio's stuntman. Look nothing like each other, but he's his stuntman, and it's set in 1969. So it looks brilliant. So it's just totally off the wall Tarantino special. But the Bruce Lee guy, I had to watch it about 3 times because I'm a massive Bruce Lee fan, and I was like, that is uncanny.
Nice.
So give it a chance, because I know Bruce Lee trained up people like Steve McQueen, James Corbin, you know, people like that, and they obviously helped him get into acting as well.
Not James Corden.
No, I nearly said James Corbin. No, James Corbin out of the Magnificent Seven and stuff, but he's a few people who are his friends who he trained up, and obviously Chuck Norris and that, but he didn't train Chuck Norris, so we were just good friends, by the way. But and then the last thing, Dave, I know we've both watched this, is anybody out there is not comic book based, you have to watch Afterlife. We mentioned it last week. We'd watched a couple of episodes. I've watched the whole series. I don't know if you have, Dave. I thought it's one of the best. And I'll be honest with you, Man Tears wasn't even in it. And I actually got a like, Dave, of Mr. Ricky Gervais with my Twitter when I mentioned it.
Oh, nice.
So that's my claim to fame for last week. He actually liked, because I said to one of my friends, we were having a conversation, tagged him and said, I've got to be honest with you, I put my hood up and I had Man Tears watching it, Dave, and I never ever do that or admit that, but I was proper. Some of the bits got me big time in that series.
It was proper lump in the throat stuff, wasn't it?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it did go from, you know, just being laugh out loud funny to, you know, real getting choked. And I don't mind saying myself, I can't recall seeing anything that just swings quite so much like that from one to the other. It is a great, great series. Really well written, really well acted as well, I think.
Yeah, I do. And he's using the usual suspects that are in a lot of his other adaptations, like Derek, Extras, The Office. These all people along the way who you've seen, but it doesn't take it away from them thinking, oh, you're the character at The Extras, or Derek. It's so good. And I've just seen in the last half hour, he's actually said the comments everyone's made. He said, I'm starting looking at doing series 2. So I don't know how that's going to go, because you've both watched it. But
so what did he actually say for Ricky to like it?
I said,
can't remember, can you?
No. I've got Twitter on. Hold on a sec. You put me right on the spot then. Hold on.
It was so memorable.
No. I put just this second finish episode 6. Unbelievable show. Man Tears from me from the get-go. Trying to hide it from the missus as we watched. Ha ha. And then the tag my wife in, obviously Sam. And then put like your hashtag Afterlife, and he liked it. And then in the thread, I was talking to one of my friends about the hoodie and that I had, because I did have a hoodie on, Dave, trying to be dead hard, but I was absolutely a blubbering mess at the end of it. But yeah, really good, really good. And if Ricky is listening, then, you know, thanks very much, mate.
Oh, I am sure he's listening. But you've just reminded me, actually. So another person who'd liked one of our tweets a while ago was Michael J. White, wasn't it?
Yes. And
I did see there was an interview with him. I think it was on the Collision podcast or something like that. And he was talking about Spawn and how that turned out. And he was basically saying, the original cut was, it was, I can't remember exactly what words he used now, but, it had a story. It was a story centered around the main character, Spawn. But he ended up sort of, after all the shooting and whatever, just putting loads and loads of effects. And you could tell from watching the interview with him, he was like, by the time the movie was finished, he was like, even I don't know what's going on. And I acted in it. So how is anyone else going to know what's going on? So you could tell he wasn't very happy with the director there.
No, and that probably tie in with the fact that there was 40 minutes, wasn't there, on the special, I think it was the DVD or video release at the time. I remember saying it as part of the movie research that Michael J. White had said, watch that. It seemed to make a bit more sense, but we've never watched it, either of us, I don't think, Dave, have we, since we reviewed it?
No, but I think it would be interesting, wouldn't it, to see what was that original cut like. Yeah. And certainly from Michael J. White's perspective, it was a lot better, but it's just one of those, isn't it? It's a missed opportunity. So I think we're getting a new Spawn. So it's just, we'll put that one in the archives. It was also interesting because he was talking about working with Heath Ledger as well on Dark Knight. And so that was quite interesting. He said, the guys all just had a ball. There was a lot of rumors about, obviously Heath unfortunately passed away. A lot of rumors that, it was playing that character that basically he got so obsessed with it. That was what drove him to an early grave. But as far as Michael J. White was concerned, nah, it's all rubbish. He was absolutely fine. As soon as the camera stopped, he was goofing around and stuff.
Oh, exactly. And it is rumours. It adds to the mystique, doesn't it, of him overdosing and that, Dave. You know what they're like, Hollywood. They like to glamorise death even, don't they, unfortunately? So
yeah, it's just creating a narrative, about, this tragic character. So no, it was good to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, someone who was right there. Exactly.
And I think as well, just quickly, is that also ties in with Doom as well. Not Doom, Dread, with the Sylvester Stallone one, day, because that was the same thing, wasn't it? They weren't sure. Stallone wanted it to be a bit of a sort of PG, but they actually wanted it as an 18, didn't they? And it ended up being, neither of them did it. So there was originally an R-rated cut. So it's the same sort of stuff again. Unfortunately, what gets cut on that floor can sometimes ruin a film, and it did, unfortunately, for those two ones we reviewed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm definitely going to go and see that. As soon as we finish recording, I'll see that Quentin Tarantino one. It sounds really good. I am a bit of a fan, to be honest, of Quentin Tarantino. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I do like his stuff.
Oh, I do. I love it. Absolutely love his films, Dave. I'm with you on that. I remember, yeah.
You remember, yeah?
No, I'll stop because...
Is that the band?
No, we'll end up going up on another time. No,
go on, say it.
There was one film where Pulp Fiction come out, and there was one called Curdled. Have you ever seen it?
Oh, no.
Right. Dave, this is your homework, actually. So basically, it's a Tarantino film. I think it's one of his first ones he ever made. A friend of mine brought it round for me years ago on video, I think it was, around like 98. And it's about, this is true, only Tarantino could bring a film, it's about these two guys, I think, or these two women, I can't remember the full premise. They go round to people's houses when there's been a murder, and they have to clean the blood up of out of the house. So the curdled is the blood, Dave. It's the most off-the-wall thing you've ever seen. And I remember I've watched it, and I was like, what is this? But it's all to do with how they clear the blood up and the premise of what's happened in these houses and that. I can't remember whether it tells a story of what's happened or something, but it's something so bizarre that only Tarantino would make. But it was done before Pulp Fiction.
Well, he was one of the writers, according to my source right here, IMDb. So the director was Reb Braddock. He was one of the writers, but it looks like Tarantino was one of the writers. I'm convinced his first director movie was Reservoir Dogs.
Yes, I think it was.
And I remember seeing that. I think it was banned, but I managed to get a dodgy copy and watch that back in the day. I just absolutely loved it. I'd never seen anything like it at all. And that dialogue, going back and, you miss a lot of the dialogue the first time you watch it, and going back and watching it again, I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, class, absolute class. I must say, though, Pulp Fiction's one of my favourites. Love it.
And I watched it last year, and it absolutely stands up.
Yeah,
it really does still stand up as a movie to watch. But,
the only thing I'd say about that, Dave, sorry to crush you, is when you rent it from the video shop around about 96, with my nan's 90 now, she's still with us. My granddad, unfortunately, passed away. But at the time, they were probably late 60s, mid 60s. So within a couple of minutes, as soon as we get some sort of action on the screen or swearing, my granddad fast forwards it. So straight away, we get the girl who stands up. I'm going to...
Uma Thurman?
No.
Everybody...
Yeah,
this is a robbery.
This is a robbery. I'm going to kill every last mother. Insert.
Mother lover.
Yeah, mother lover. And then that was all right. So, but then it got turned off. And I'll tell you a little story, Dave. So they didn't want to watch it. I've always been a movie buff, collected movies, films for years, videos. I had stacked hundreds of videos at one point and then went on to DVDs. And I got up the next day to watch it because they didn't want to watch it because there was constant swearing. What do you think, Dave? At 8 o'clock in the morning, my nana and granddad walked in on that I was watching in Pulp Fiction. What scene?
It's got to be Bring Out the Gimp, hasn't it?
Yeah. I remember my nan walking in as Bruce Willis. He's in the shop, up the stairs, looking at the different weapons, and he gets that samurai sword. And I remember the next scene, you've got...
Just as he opens the door, your nan walks in.
Marcella Wallace, he's getting absolutely walloped, shall we say. And I'm just like, oh, no.
Several counselling sessions later.
I was about 16, 17. I'm thinking, to be fair, Dave, that's the first time I'd ever seen anything like that in a film. Because, I know we had it in Deliverance, didn't we, and stuff. Squeal like a pig sort of thing. But this was for a proper movie, as in a proper cinema thing. It was unheard of, and it sort of broke a lot of barriers, literally. But I remember, and I was like,
broke a lot of barriers. It certainly did.
Marcella Wallace never got over it, but anyway. We'll move swiftly on, Dave. What are we reviewing this week?
So, well, actually, we've run quite long there, haven't we? So thanks for listening.
See you next week.
So I'm going to attempt to join a few things up there. So we talked about Dark Knight. What a great movie that was in 2008. The start of the MCU started in 2008 as well with Iron Man. And also another great movie that came out in 2008 was Speed Racer.
Oh, the irony, Dave. But anyway.
Speed Racer. Bit of comics background then. So Mac Go Go Go, and I don't think this was inspired by the Welsh train station. Do you remember that?
Yep.
I used to be able to say it, but I think, what does it finish off with? Something like Clansilio Go 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 or something like that?
Yeah.
Clanfar Pwyth Gingwerth Gagaedwyn Drobeth. I can't remember. Look it up on Google. Welsh train station name, and it's going to be one of the first things that comes up there. There are way too many consonants in there. But anyway, Mac Go 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 was originally published by Japanese-based Sunwide Comics in 1966 and was written by Tatsuo Yoshida. Now, the anime series made its debut just a year later in 1967, so it got picked up fairly quickly there, and probably more responsible for its popularity, certainly here in the West. I think a lot of people remember that 60s Speed Racer as we knew it over here. Now, creator Yoshida took some of the inspiration from two Western movies which were popular at the time. So one was Viva Las Vegas with good old Elvis, and James Bond in Goldfinger. Now, specifically what I'm talking about there is we've got Elvis's race car image, and from Goldfinger he took James Bond's gadget-filled Aston Martin as well. So we've got a real interesting, mix of East and West influences there. Now, over in the West, in terms of the comics, so Now Comics published a series in English in the 90s, and later Wildstorm, which is part of DC Comics, also published it. Now, it's out of print at the moment, but if you wanted to pick up one of these, you can go onto eBay or Amazon and pick them up secondhand. I couldn't find anywhere that you've got digital copies of them. But yeah, if you're going to try and get hold of one of those, you're going to have to get them secondhand at the minute. Now, Chris, can you tell us about the movie background?
Of course. So this one, Dave, a bit like a lot of the films and TV shows that we've reviewed, was in development hell, basically, for a long, long time. We go back 27 years to 1992. Warner Brothers took up the option to create a live film adaptation of the 1960s Japanese anime and manga series Speed Racer. It was in development at Silver Pictures. In 94, he was a very controversial figure, but singer stroke political activist Henry Rollins was offered the role of Racer X. He then turned it down. It went another year. They then offered it to Johnny Depp in 1995. And they actually got to the point where the actual production and locations were on point for like California and Arizona for the October 95. Again, pushed back, never to be seen again. Just basically Johnny Depp had to step out due to work commitments and family issues. So they had to sort of can it. And from there, it just went into all sorts of legalities about what they're going to do, who's going to produce it. And then finally, in 2006, the Wachowski brothers were brought on board by the producer to direct it by producer Joel Silver, and they'd all collaborated on V for Vendetta, and obviously the first one is one of my favourite films, the Matrix trilogy. The production was set for 2007 in Europe, with different locations throughout the summer for a release in 2008. Now, they decided that with this, they were going to try and go down the route and be true to the actual comic style, the anime style, everything. So the Wachowski brothers actually filmed and directed for the first time in high definition on this one, Dave. And what they did was they used a layering approach that will put both the foreground and background in focus, so it gives it a real life anime feel. I can't say whether it is or not because I've never read the comics. I don't know what that actually means or what the style is. You probably know more than me. But then it also gives it a retro future look as well. So that's where they went. And yeah, I can see what they're saying. The style's very good. Now, casting-wise, Jordan, that's terrible. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Shia LaBeouf and Zac Efron were all up for Speed Racer. When finally they give it to Emile Hirsch. Now, one of the things with the production on this actual film, which was a bit controversial, was the use of monkeys in it, Dave. Now, there was an actual proper problem as well with PETA, the animal cruelty people, the protection of animals.
Yeah.
One of the monkeys actually bit one of the actors. Unprovoked, there was no reason for it, but it had to be reported to the American Humane Association. But then they actually had someone on site, one of their representatives as well, to make sure the monkey was being treated fairly. And totally unprovoked and for no reason whatsoever, during one of the sort of training sessions for the monkeys for one of the scenes, one of the trainers whacked the monkey and gave him a proper whack. So that absolutely online, it created such a storm and such hate towards the film and what they're doing for animal cruelty. The Wachowskis and Silver got a lot of backlash for this one on that day. I mean, luckily, and everything else, the monkeys and chimpanzees were absolutely fine, but it was just something that was just totally uncontrolled, unneeded, and totally unnecessary as well. Like they always say, don't work with children and animals, but you certainly don't give them a whack.
Don't bash your monkey on set.
As long as no one can see you. No.
Yeah, don't get caught.
Don't get caught. And we're not talking about whacking a chimpanzee here, people. We're talking about whacking something else. But anyway. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, Dave, we move over to the box office section. It absolutely bombed at the box office. It made 93 or just under 94 million, which you'd think, it's not too bad. The budget was 120 million plus marketing. So it's an absolute mess.
Whoa. Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. So what they also decided, though, Warner Brothers realised they had a bit of a turkey on their hands with the box office, but they were hoping, because the cartoon was quite popular in the early 90s. I remember watching it. I was quite invested in Speed Racer cartoons, so I remember it quite well. And they thought that the merchandise, Dave, which is quite an unusual way to do it, because obviously we know like the Avengers and Batmans and Supermans, they do make money from the merchandising, but that's on top of everything else. They actually hoped and sort of roll the dice that the merchandising would swing it round and they'd turn a profit on the Speed Racer. But nobody bought into it, Dave. Nobody bought into it because the film was so, I'll get onto that in a sec, the way it was reviewed and scored and the way it was seen by people, it just was an absolute bomb, unfortunately. And there was talk of a sequel, but after it failed so miserably, no company was going to put any money or any drive or PR behind it, unfortunately. Now, critically, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's at 40% out of 100. That's based off 210 reviews with an average user rating of 5.1 out of 10. 5.1 out of 10. At Metacritic, which obviously, as we know, has another rating out of 100, it's at 37%, which generally means 37 out of 100 means it's unfavourable reviews, which it was. And that was based off 37 reviews, funny enough, as well. So, yeah, that's it really, Dave. It wasn't the best, and unfortunately, it was a bit of a bomb. I cannot wait to get into reviewing this one, Dave.
Yeah. What can we say? I mean, this was a request coming in from Twitter, wasn't it? And it seemed rude not to. Quite honestly, I'd never read the comics. I do remember the old anime show as well, as most people do. Didn't even know this live-action movie was out there. So I'd never seen it either. So I've got no nostalgia lenses at all when I'm watching this. And well, let's see where we go. Our story centers around a young man named Speed Racer who grows up in a racing family and idolizes his older brother Rex Racer. Now, Rex falls out with his parents and the independent racer motors to race for other teams. He gains a reputation as a dirty driver and is killed while racing the Casa Cristo. Speed throws himself into racing and in his brother's Mach 5 and his own Mach 6 car. Now, Chris... We'd never seen this. I don't think you'd seen this before either, had you? So what did you make to this movie as we start off?
You know what it felt like? I'll be honest with you. I don't know whether you have a point of reference because your children are younger than Jordan's 18. Maybe your eldest daughter, it might be something you watched. It felt like I was watching, Dave, and this is maybe a reference that only UK listeners will understand. There was a program called Lazy Town out around about the mid-2000s.
Oh, yep.
And the style of the way the colours popped, the way they were dressed, even the acting, I felt I was watching some child's program. I mean, the colour style, very good, and the racing and the way they've done it, good. But I just didn't like the way they kept panning to like the sort of the two co-commentators and the crowd, his parents. Obviously, we've got John Goodman there as his dad. We've got Susan Sarandon. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better cast, really, Dave. You know, and I'm thinking, I don't get it. I don't understand what's going on here. You know, like not that I don't understand. I understand what Speed Race is about. Like I say, I watched it. I know the origins of the characters as such, but it just was a complete cluster. FC UK, if I'm being honest, Dave, because it's just a mess. It's just the story doesn't make any sense, and this is one of the ones, Dave, where I must admit I put the clock on thinking, oh my God, it's 2 hours 15. How the hell are they going to sit? And I had to watch it in about 4 sittings. I must admit, literally the way we break it down is pretty much how I watched it. If I'm being honest, it's just atrocious. This at the start.
Well, I mean, I went into it not really knowing what to expect. But yeah, it's definitely got... I mean, I hadn't thought Lazy Town, to be honest, but now you say that, it is definitely that. But I think that's just an indication, isn't it, that it is absolutely a kid's movie. And so I was going into it not knowing what to expect, but within the first 5 minutes, I'm thinking, all right, okay, so this is very much a kid's movie. But there was a sprinkling of swearing throughout the movie as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like some of the stuff we've reviewed, and it's quite a unique film, this, to what we've reviewed in the past. I think stylized wise, some of it was a bit like The Kingsman, where all of a sudden it went a bit crazy. The colours always popping all the time, but I just didn't get it. I didn't know what they were trying to do. If it's trying to be a children's thing, I think the Wachowski brothers were just trying to be too clever, Dave. They used a lot of techniques from The Matrix. A lot of the special effects people were brought on board. And obviously, the original Matrix was absolutely lauded by myself, by everybody, awards, everything for the special effects. We had the bullet time. We had the different things with Neo, didn't we? We had the scene where Trinity goes to rescue Morpheus, and we got the whole guns and the pillars were exploding, the bullets and all that. I know that's more cosmetic effects and real-time effects. This is obviously something that's based all CGI, but it just didn't feel, it felt like it was off, and they were just trying to be too clever for their own good, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the things that it reminded me of were probably Spy Kids, and also you've probably never seen it. So the kids watch this one, and it's just atrocious. It's called Shark Boy and Lava Girl, I think.
No.
And it is just the worst. It's got Taylor Lautner in it.
Yep.
Who obviously, rose to fame because he bulked up, didn't he? And he looked pretty damn nifty with his shirt off, so the ladies loved him. It's got him, but he must be about 13 or something like that. And it is just awful. And, I remember, the kids asked me, it's like, when do you get old, why do you stop liking cartoons and stuff? And it's like, well, you don't. What you do is you create your own comic podcast. So you don't get out of, liking kids stuff, but there are just certain things that you don't get enjoyment out of anymore. And like I say, when the kids are watching something like Spy Kids or this Shark Boy and Lava Girl thing, it's just, I watch it and it's just like, oh, this is terrible. So I think it's not straightforward for me to give a completely unbiased view of this, because I think it's terrible, right?
Yeah.
This is absolutely not my kind of movie. But I can kind of step back and say, okay, this is a kid's movie. So if I'm judging it as a kid's movie, like I say, the bit of swearing does jar with me because it's not in keeping with the kids' movie, something that could be shown at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning or something like that. I can see kids would watch this and enjoy it. And also, if you were of that age when you watched it, as a younger person in 2008, I think you would look back at this and still enjoy it. But like I say, the swearing, and also this is over 2 hours. This movie does not need to be that long at all. So, straight away, those things, I think, are a bit odd. But certainly if you go in and you say, oh, look, it's the Wachowski brothers, loved The Matrix. The sequels were awful, but, it's still kind of watchable. I'll go and watch this, see this dark, post-apocalyptic speed racer thing. Nope, just a weird, weird movie. That, some of the effects, okay, they look kind of a bit out there, but I can see what they're trying to do there. But yeah, it's not good.
No, it's not. And I think as well, though, Dave, there's the story's really thin in it. What Rex Racer, his brother, Speed absolutely idolizes him. And we get this thing where he's like, don't believe what everyone says about me and all this. We've all seen this sort of cliched stuff before. The bad brother, and all this. Is he going to redeem himself or whatever? And I was like, but it's not. It doesn't make any logical sense what was going on. And they flick to the races quite quickly sometimes with no real depth or understanding of why it's happening. It's like the commentators are the ones telling the story of the film, and you have to sort of listen to what they're saying to understand actually what's going on with the plot. The dialogue is terrible in places. I mean, Matthew Fox is on there, and at the time, obviously, people that know Matthew Fox he was the main actor. He was Jack out of Lost, and around 2008, obviously, Lost was huge, and that's one of the reasons he got the part as well. But even he's Racer X in it, but even he is, he's not redeemable. His dialogue, his whole delivery, and I know he's not in this first part of the film, but it's just like everything. It's absolutely atrocious. And I must admit, Dave, I really wish this was an explicit podcast because I would lay into this big time because it's an absolute mess of a film. It's just, and you know what? I know I say it all the time about being one of the worst films I've ever seen. I don't necessarily think it's the worst film we've reviewed, but I actually think it's the hardest film to watch that we've, out of the 65 films TV shows we've reviewed, it's the hardest one I've found to actually sit there and try and review and watch, and does that make sense? I know we've had some turkeys like Howard the Duck and the Fantastic Four and, Degeneration X. I mean, Nick Fury, for me, he's miles above. Nick Fury's an Asgard compared to this piece of stuff. But it was just so difficult to concentrate and actually watch it in one sitting. I couldn't do it. I just thought, this is awful. And I really, really, and not me, I love reviewing the rubbish, what I do, Dave? That gives us the best laughs. But I always think of you and just think somewhere around the world, wherever you're working, you are laughing in a corner thinking, poor old Chris is having to watch this crap. I know you're having to do the same, but you know what I mean?
No. I think though I get enjoyment knowing about your lack of enjoyment and cursing me. So I mean, if you can imagine planes, trains, and automobiles, when they go in between the trucks.
Yeah.
And Steve Martin, he's got his hands dug into the dashboard, and he looks across, and John Candy's in the devil's outfit, and he's just laughing his head off. Yeah. That's me.
As long as you said it wasn't the when they wake up.
No, not the pillows.
I love a game. Yeah. But yeah, it tickles me. But I do think out of everything we've reviewed, Dave, this was the hardest thing I've had to watch. And look, not it's first world problems. It's not the end of the world, but it was hysterically bad. And also 2 hours it's literally 2 hours where you're thinking, I mean, this is the longest rubbish film that we've had to review, because most of them are about 90 minutes, aren't we? That we've reviewed. This is a real slog. And anyone out there who hasn't watched it, if you've got the chance to watch it, watch it. And if you disagree with us, then tell us both. I know we're sort of going through step by step some of the things in the film, but it's so difficult a plot, and there's just just makes. And it's a shame because John Goodman, Susan Sarandon, I mean, even Matthew Fox, like I say, he's lost fame, got in the part. They're good actors and actresses, they're not rubbish, and it's so bizarre to be given such a script and they actually were happy with what they were producing. I don't know. I just don't.
Well, I think again, if you think, so Sin City was 2005, so it's 3 years before this. So, and that was done on pure green screen. I think they made up a couple of sets or something, didn't they? But mostly the film was shot on a green screen. So I was trying to think to myself, okay, where is this movie kind of innovative? But like I say, it was 2008. If it was 1998 or something, I'd be like, oh, right. They've really pushed it out there. And technically, they broke some boundaries and it's underappreciated. But I don't know if they've done anything new here.
No, I agree.
They've also got, what's the lady's name? Christina Ricci.
Yeah, Christina Ricci. It's at the Addams Family, wasn't she? She's quite a big actress around the mid-2000s, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was in everything around this time. So, like you say, in terms of a cast, it's right up there, isn't it? Yeah,
it's bizarre, isn't it? It's really, really bizarre. I forgot about Christina Ricci. Yeah, really unbelievable, Dave. Unbelievable situation to be in. And
you know what it strikes me as, though? So, again, I think they've got all the ingredients there, but this reminds me of the Star Wars prequels, because we're talking about motor racing. Okay, so I can get behind that, but we get into the politics of it, don't we? And we get into let's go into the second bit, because we get E.P. Arnold Royalton, don't we? He's the owner of Royalton Industries. He offers Speed the chance to race. with him and enjoy a luxurious lifestyle. And although he's initially tempted, he rejects the offer, and Royalton gets fairly angry and tells him how all the races are fixed, based on corporate interests, and the next race, he gets his drivers to try and take out Speed in his Mach 6. And then he also, he's going to sue his parents' company for good measure. Now, for me, this is like, you take the essence of what is Star Wars, and it's the light against the dark. It's good against evil. You've got a great baddie in Darth Vader. And then you want to explore, okay, so how did Darth Vader become Darth Vader? Or how did Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader? Okay, that sounds like a great story. And then the credits start rolling up and we start talking about trade blockades. And it's like, what do I care? I was probably 20 or 30 or something at the time. What do I care? Yeah, it would have been 20 odd. What do I care about trade blockades? Certainly what is a kid going to care about trade blockades? And I certainly don't care about midichlorians. So it just goes into detail that is just no one's really going to be that bothered about, and I guess, if you think of something like Lazy Town, then it's not going to go into corporate manipulation of sporting events, I wouldn't have thought. But who cares in a movie like this? Who cares? Yeah,
it's true. It's. I think, to be fair, Dave, I think that's a fantastic explanation. Honestly, I think it feels like they've been wanting to do this for a long time. A bit like what we had with Alita, Dave, wasn't it? Where James Cameron had canvassed this for so long, to actually do this film. And then when it actually came to sort of fruition and came to the actual screen, it was just terrible. And it feels as if they were trying to service the sort of fans, but it didn't service anyone, if that makes sense. It's just a mess, an absolute mess of a film. It's just... It's really hard.
I've got to be honest, Chris. I kind of wanted to come on here and project how much I enjoyed it, just to wind you up. But I think the most positive thing I can say about it is that I can see kids watching this and enjoying it.
Yeah,
but it's so long. I don't know if they're going to sit there for nearly 2.5 hours and watch it. But as an adult watching it for the first time, pretty bad. Yeah. Now, after he's dumped out of the race, Speed has his chance to retaliate, working with Inspector Detector, the head of the intelligence agency's corporate crimes division.
What the hell? Inspector Detector? I mean, who wrote this garbage name? Inspector Detector? I mean, come on. That's like some 4-year-old kid has just come along and drew a picture and gone, Inspector Detector. It's absolutely awful.
Now, come on then, Podcast Pete. Don't
It's just nonsense. You've well done me with this, Dave. Absolutely done me with this one this week. I've got to give you full 10 out of 10 for this. You absolutely had me off here. It's just... Inspector Detector.
We do have to remind our listeners, I do kind of enjoy, I keep trying to raise the bar, because you keep declaring there was that first time back when we watched Nick Fury, Agent, I was going to say Nick Shield then. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., you declared this is the worst movie I have ever seen, and are we a year old? We're just over a year old, aren't we?
Yeah.
And we keep breaking that seal.
I think I've said it about 7 times on it. Now, it's not going to be much of a shock, Dave, but I'm going to say it. This is, without doubt, the worst film you've ever... The thing is, you are right, though. It's got the ingredients to be such a good, iconic film, and it just simply isn't. I mean, the story... I must admit, Dave, I didn't even know that they were going after his dad's business there. The parents suing the parents' company. I've totally missed that, and I've watched it.
Well, I think I suffered a bit of this, so hopefully we'll capture most of the story. But I think I remember someone telling me years ago, if you're driving tired, you can have what they call a micro sleep, where, so it's really dangerous because you can just go asleep for that split second and, veer off the road and cause an accident. But I think several times I may have had a macro sleep through this because it was, it's kind of like, just my attention had drifted off a bit, and it's like, well, we're in a race again. I'm gonna have to reverse it back. So probably to actually get through this movie, it probably took me more like 3 hours, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Inspector Detector, I think that is one of my favourites actually. So, but then we get Racer Tejo. Hold on. Togo Khan.
Right, so hang on, Dave, hang on. I'm sorry to cut across you because I know it's a tongue twister. So they pull out Racer Tejo Togo Khan, but they go with Inspector Detector as another character. I mean,
it's this mixture of like Japanese sounding things, and then just you're going to get hung up on Inspector Detector, and our main guy. Our main protagonist is Speed Racer.
Oh no, hang on. What about Rex Racer, Dave? Come on.
well, no. I mean, we have Racer X, which is totally different from Rex.
So, what about thinking though, Dave? The other racer as well, S-Hit. I don't know.
Prefix with clucking. I just, we are. I have to apologise, from the chap who requested this. He's probably never going to listen again.
I think you give us an endorsement, didn't he, Dave? I can only apologise.
So let's time out for there because he did message us, didn't he? He said for him it's an Atlantis. And I'll when we do our wrap up, I'll throw that in there as well, just to remind people. It is for some people, they do enjoy it. Just none of them are recording tonight.
I saw our friend Max Bird as well from BC World had actually said it's terrible, good luck.
Yeah.
And a good old thing as well, Lex the man, he wants to give me a hug, doesn't he? Good old
yeah.
Well, he wants to.
He's obviously seen it as well. So yes, but anyway, so Tejo Togo Khan, I think that is roughly how you pronounce it, says he has evidence to indict Royalton, but will only give it up if Speed and this mysterious Racer X agree to race in his team in this Casa Cristo 5000. So they get to work on Speed's Mach 5 to get ready for the race. Yeah.
The next question is why?
Well, I guess so. Why? So then we get to have some cool kind of special effects, don't we? We get this brutal race. Speed's there, our main protagonist. I'm doing my best here, Chris. Come on, help me out here. So,
a brutal race. It's not exactly Death Race, Dave.
It's not quite Death Race, but it is the Lazy Town version of Death Race, where they, so lots of Royaltons, paid off drivers are trying to take Speed out, but he's working so well with Racer X. He's kind of suspecting it's his brother. It's a bit of a leap, but yeah, he's suspecting that. But Speed ends up winning the race, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
But we find out Tejo was only interested in increasing the value of his family's company, so he wanted to make more money because Royalton was going to buy his family's company out. So he needed to boost the value of it so he get paid more money for it. So he didn't have any evidence on Royalton at all. So, wow. Plot twist.
Yeah. I'm not bothered, really, Dave. It's a terrible plot twist, though, isn't it? It's not even the way they deliver it. You don't care, do you, or even understand that it's a pretty lame reach, isn't it, Dave? You know, for all that money they've got. I know I'm having a laugh and a joke at Spencer. I do apologise to people who like the film, because there is films that we've probably liked that you guys don't out there, so apologies. But I'm laughing because it's just ludicrous that they had 120 million to spend on this, and they literally didn't spend it on any good writers, because it's so thin, and a child could have wrote this. Even I could have wrote this, Dave, as a screenplay, and you know my writing's not the best. You get a lot of my predictive.
It's semi-coherent.
Yeah. You know, you have to read mine about 5 or 6 times, but.
So sometimes, should we break the fourth wall a second?
Go on,
so you don't proofread anything, do you?
No.
But normally I can read the collection of words. I say, okay, this is what Chris is trying to say. But just occasionally I'll read this collection of words and I'll just be like, no, I just have absolutely no idea what you're saying there. And that's when it's I'll just give you a quick call. Right,
yeah,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, I actually blame it on Apple's stupid predictive text, because what I want to say never turns out what it actually is. And even when you said to me, I don't know what that is, can you say it again? I still don't check that. And I said you something else. You go, I still don't know what you're going on about.
Yep, that's just a whole different load of confusion.
That's me all over. But yeah, you think, wouldn't you, Dave, for this amount of money, for the talent they've got on show, as well as actors and actresses, they're not rubbish. You know, they've got a who's who and a catalogue and a CV of a body of work of stuff that they've done. And, you know what I mean? Susan Sarandon, Dave, she's no mug, you know, and you John Goodman, I loved him in Roseanne, I loved him in loads of different films, you know. I mean, he even did the Blues Brothers 2000, and I can watch that better than this, and that was terrible. The first one was great, but I think, you know what I think? The best bit of this whole film at the end, towards the end, is when the actual ninjas break into Speed Racer's room. And then we find out properly that John Goodman, from nowhere, is an actual wrestler, a wrestling icon. And he levers because he's got a ring on, like a sort of, a bit like the American football NFL rings they get, you know, the Hall of Fame rings. And the ninja looks at him and goes, and then he absolutely just, I mean, Speed Racers give him a good kicking as well, but he comes in and just starts throwing him round. And I did like that. That was like a slapstick thing. But again, I keep thinking of like, Lazy Town, like I'm watching, like a compilation of like the Chuckle Brothers, Lazy Town. These are all English references, guys, as well. Apologies, but all these sort of tea time children's programs or adult sort of teen programs, and it's just a mess, an absolute mess. And I just feel a shame on such a strong cast to be sort of tossed aside with an absolute mess of a story. I think the one thing they fail at more than anything, Dave, is you do not care about the characters. Speed Racer is not convincing at all. That Emile Hirsch, what he's called, who's Speed Racer, I just don't care about his character. I was more interested in Racer X, if I'm being honest, because he was mysterious. He actually looked like a superhero. Speed Racer just didn't do it for me at all.
Yeah, I think the only thing I can put it down to with such a strong cast is because a lot of it's green screen. And like I say, I imagine there's a lot on the cutting room floor. So it's probably the way the film's edited together as well.
Yeah.
You know, so I think as an actor, you then become quite separated from what the final product is going to be. Because, you know, all those actors, they've been in some great properties, haven't they? Both on movies and TV. And it was just awful. Yeah, and I know, like, his little brother and the monkey kept, like, appearing in bits of the film, and I'm like, I don't understand why. I really don't understand why you're there. Yeah,
and from a continuity point of view as well, his brother's Sprite, he's called, isn't he? He's about 10 years old. He's 18, and obviously Rex was probably mid-20s. So, I know, look, I've got a sister who's 20 years younger than me, so I can't say anything, but I just think I didn't buy it. I didn't buy the continuity of the characters, especially how old John Goodman and Susan Sarandon are in this. They're not young, but she's supposed to have had a kid 10 years ago. She looks 60 in this. So,
To be fair, she's one of those people, isn't she? She's always in Thelma and Louise. I think she looked that old. Yeah, she's just, even when she was young, she just looked the same. I think, but I know what you mean. Yeah, people have kids at different ages. It wasn't that bothered me. It was just the fact that again, they had the monkey. Was that it? Was it just because, hey, look at the monkey? We've got a monkey here, and I don't know. Like I say, I haven't read these particular comics, so I can't tell you if in the comics there was a monkey there.
Yeah,
but I was just confused whenever they popped up as to why they were there. But I think again, for me, this whole double cross. He's going to provide evidence, and then he just wanted to boost the value of his family's firm. It's just like. Kids surely aren't going to care about this. So when I'm saying, some kids, I can see that they might watch this and get some enjoyment out of it. All the kind of corporate politics is just going to be lost on them. So I'm not sure who that's there for.
Yeah, I agree. I think what you said about your children at the start, Dave, this is the sort of film, and Jordan... Beg your pardon, sorry. Jordan watched an awful film. One of the ones from when she was younger was Barney, the dinosaur. I love you, you love me. It's absolutely. And I've watched the film there that I've still got on DVD. I won't get rid of it. And Jordan looks at me like she's 18 now, like, what is this nonsense he used to watch? And I swear to God, Dave, I have watched that film about. It's Barney the dinosaur and some golden egg chase thing. And I must have watched it about, I'm not lying, about 100 times. She used to watch it every single night when she was like 2-3 years old. and it's absolutely awful. But as a child, I could imagine a child, someone who's into cars, a lad or girl, they get enjoyment just out of the cars, Dave, not the story. Because that's what I'm saying. It feels a bit like a children's TV show where there's no real story to it. It's just about the action, the razzmatazz. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think you could imagine a young lad or young girl who's into Matchbox or Hot Wheels sitting there just watching it on a loop, the car, getting the speed. And that's what I'm saying about the merchandise at the start. They were hoping that it would lead on to it and it'd be so big, and it just simply wasn't. I can imagine, really, the Speed Racer toys are probably worth some money now. 9 years later, whatever it is, or it's 11 years ago, isn't it, when this come out? So it might be. There's not a lot out there, to be fair.
That's a logic leap. Why would you think they'd be worth anything? To be worth something, you've got to have people who are willing to pay for it.
No, because it's so rubbish. No one bought any of the merchandise. See, let me investigate, Dave. That's my logic, anyway.
No one bought it because it's rubbish, so it's not worth anything.
This is why I haven't got my own business, Dave. Hold on a sec. Hold on. Let me have a look.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tony.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, you can buy a new Speed Racer car for £7.19, actually, on eBay, so... Oh, $9.95 here, Dave.
So, brilliant, yeah. So, originally, in 2008, you could buy it for 20 quid. If we ever monetize the podcast, Chris.
Yeah. I'll leave that to you, Dave, I think.
So before you go rushing out buying your Speed Racer merchandise because you think it might be a little gold mine, I'd think again.
Well, Dave,
listeners out there,
someone's selling Hot Wheels, McDonald's, and Speed Racer cars for a job lot for £10 plus postage. So I'll just
plus postage. Yeah. Oh, right. So not postage included.
Yeah, I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet now in the corner. I think.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to our story, shall we? So Tejo's sister is disgusted by her brother's action, and he turns up at Speed's house and gives him an automatic invitation to the Grand Prix. So the racing family get to work on the new Mach 6 to enter him in the race. So again, I think, going back to our kids analogy or thinking and trying to put ourselves into a kid's perspective, all of this bit is probably where you go and make yourself some chocolate milk or something like that because you just don't care about this. And then we get into the next race, and that's probably where you wake up again. To be fair, I seem to remember when I was a kid, a lot of Star Wars was lost on me as well. And I just loved the last bit, the fighting and blowing up the Death Star and that sort of thing. So
yeah, and I think, to be fair, they were hoping this was going to be a franchise, wasn't it? And because it bombed so badly, it was just a one-hit wonder, wasn't it, really? And
a wonder.
A wonder, yeah, literally, yeah. But yeah, so we come to the end, don't we? So obviously he gets the invitation, he gets into the Grand Prix, and then the family all work on his vehicle, don't they, the Mach 6, to get him into this race, get him so he can win the race. And he does enter the race. Now, we have this weird bit where before the race starts, don't we, where they're all on a bit of a Russian standoff, aren't they? And they're like double crossing Speed and obviously race. This is obviously just before all this, but I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this has happened. It was just poor. And then obviously Speed exposes Jack Cannonball Taylor, another original name, use of a spear up to the cameras, and he actually wins the race, doesn't he? And this then crescendos into a sort of, I suppose it's a bit like a comic book panels, really, Dave, of like how Royalton ends up in jail, don't they? What happens to everybody, and that's probably the only thing I can say that's probably looks like it's out of the comics books, because the way they filmed it, the way I said in the movie background, it didn't feel like a comic I was watching or any sort of callback to that, even as someone who isn't a massive comic book fan. It just felt like it was a lot of colours and a lot of special effects for not a lot of reward, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was the effects were good, I think, in this final race. I think in all of the races, actually, the effects were good. But again, I'm in the mindset of, okay, who is this aimed at? It's aimed at kids, and you might pick up some parents who've got nostalgia for the old anime and the comics as well. But then, what is the key bit? Well, the key bit is when Speed is spear hooked. He uses one of his Bond gadgets to sort of propel the car upwards so that the camera can take a shot of this spear hook latching onto his car. Yeah. And again, I'm thinking, a kid's really going to get that?
Yeah, I agree. It's a very confusing message to send in. And that's not like, we're doing this and I'm doing this one, the way we're reviewing it's for laughs, because it's just, for me, my personal opinion, it's absolutely atrocious. But it's
Really? You'd kept your cards so close to your chest. I thought you were on the fence a bit there.
Sorry, Dave. That's a surprise. But no, I don't even know what to say anymore. This is just, it's baffled me, this film, because you can see, like we've said before, I'm trying to be serious now, so I'm not completely taking the mick, but, we look at Nick Fury, there was some really funny, daft bits in it, but you can see the end game. It was based on a Marvel comic. You've got stuff like Howard the Duck. Again, that was based on a comic, wasn't it? A Marvel comic as such. Mm-hmm. That was just a poor film, but there was some sort of end game to it. With this, even though it's based on a series, a manga and anime, and I know true fans want these sort of origin films, don't they? Proper anime and manga. My brother's absolutely into the manga stuff, has been for years, like cartoons, and he even does read a lot of the comics, and he's even learning Japanese now, so that world is something he's into. And I think I haven't actually asked him for an opinion on this, to be fair. I should have done, really, but I think even he would have a stretch watching this and enjoying it, because I just don't understand the direction or what the end game was to any of it. I was just talking at the start of the show about this.
Clearly selling speed race and merchandise, which is going cheap on eBay.
Again, Dave, if this was an explicit podcast of me telling you to off, I can't say it, but
you'd be telling me to foxtrot uniform.
Yeah, that's the one. But yeah, if that's what it's for, it's a 2-hour advert that doesn't sell anything because it's just a mess of everything. There's just no understand. Like what I was getting at is I've talked about that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You've got Quentin Tarantino. He's a bit of an off the wall director. We know some of the things he does. He has his direction. You watch Django. You watch, Kill Bill. As we mentioned Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. A very off the wall director. The Wachowski brothers. They did the Matrix, and anything they've done since then really has been a bit obscure. It's not been anything you think, wow. And I think between them and Joel Silver, they've just had a bad day at the office. I think I'd love to know what the cast thoughts are on it now. Like what, we talk about Leah Thompson in Howard the Duck. She says like, she's still got the guitar. She still gets asked about Howard the Duck, and all this. And she'd love to, she even talked about doing, a couple of years ago, let's do a sequel and all this sort of stuff. But I honestly think if the cast were asked about this, and I saw Emile Hirsch say he'd be interested in doing a sequel. This was from an interview last year, and I was researching it. I'm just sort of thinking, why bother? You're that desperate for work, you would want to go back for something like this. Is it that bad? And that just be spitballing. But and I'm not in any position to judge the guy on his career or anything. But I'm just sort of thinking, surely you wouldn't want to be associated with a sequel of this.
Well, when money's tight, people will do strange things. But,
yeah.
I mean, so I'm going to flip to the other side. I don't think I think the cinematography is good. Like I say, when we get the race scenes, I think they look good. The cast is a really strong cast, but I think, like you say, it's done in this lazy town fashion, and so it just brings the whole thing down, and you've got this convoluted storyline about these corporate politics and what have you. And it just doesn't mesh up very well. But when I look back, and this film got absolutely panned, and I can definitely imagine, if you're going in there expecting The Matrix, you will absolutely hate this movie. I don't hate this movie. I just don't think it's very good.
I think the only thing that was obvious in the film, and we get right to the end now, is Racer X. We get a flashback, don't we, and a callback that Racer X is actually his brother Rex. And he ends up having the best plastic surgery you have ever seen because it makes him more handsome and obviously taller and slightly different in facial features. But
bit of a Michael Knight thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah. It is a Michael Knight thing, literally like a callback to Knight Rider. Yeah, it's very good pot that day. But yeah, and that's sort of like the end of the film. He's protected his family. He doesn't reveal to him who he is. But, Speed Racer all the way along as thought he was his brother. And he was actually correct, wasn't he? When he took his mask off, he realised he wasn't. But at the end, it was a bit of a double twist. But that's the only thing where I thought, yeah, I like that bit in the film. That's probably about the only thing. Him and John Goodman fighting as a wrestler. That for me personally. Should we go into our review scores, Dave?
Let's go.
Dave, I know full well it's me this week to go first.
It certainly is.
Yes. Going into this, as you know, we've mentioned it in the show, I have watched the cartoons. I was invested in watching them regular on UK TV. I think it used to be on BBC. I used to watch them, but I was really into the Speed Racer cartoons in like the early 90s. I don't remember this coming out, if I'm being honest, Dave, in 2008. I think obviously Iron Man must have took my attention completely, as you said at the top of the show. And I think I was optimistic. I didn't look at the review scores. I didn't look at anything. But just by mentioning a video I put out on our social media, on Instagram and Twitter, I was thinking, oh, my word. And I remember you had alluded to that, saying like it's an unusual film. But you didn't give too much away to me. And I watched it, like I said earlier on. It's the hardest film I've had to watch and review. Usually, even with some of the absolute nonsense, poor stuff we reviewed, I can watch in 2 sittings, or what I'll do is I'll go past the halfway mark so I know, and then stop because I know I can get through it. And in other films I can just watch, but this was a real slog. It had no direction, no understanding. I think because of the colour palette and the direction they went with the anime stuff, it was very difficult to take the serious parts of the film serious, because when they were trying to get a message across or trying to make like Royalton seem like a baddie. It was almost just like pantomime, Punching Judy, you know, like, oh no, he isn't. Oh yes, he is. It was all played for laughs and hammed up too much. And what a waste of a cast. And I can't say any more than it's just the worst thing that we've reviewed, I think. And I say that with a heavy heart, unfortunately, because I vowed I couldn't get past some of the last rubbish ones that I've said, but he's definitely got to go to the Phantom Zone, Dave. I just can't say any more on this film. And if you do like it out there, then you're a better person than me, honestly, because I just don't get it. I'd love for someone to explain to me the situation, because I don't even think I could watch it again, Dave, to try and get any positives out of it. So, yeah.
Now, so are we saying then this is worse than the 1994 Fantastic Four movie?
Yes, because I feel sorry for the Fantastic Four movie after I watched the documentary. When I watched it firsthand, I was like, oh my God, what is this hell? But then when you actually watch the documentary and the baggage that come with it and the way they were ripped off and stuff, I felt so sorry for those guys after it. So, and yeah, I know that shouldn't be, we actually just going on the actual subject matter, but this was so difficult to watch, Dave. Honestly, it was just,
I guess okay, so I'm going to take what you've said and let it bleed into my kind of final thoughts. I think what pulls up, because I can go back to that 94 Fantastic Four movie and I can watch it. I can go back to even Generation X, Nick Fury, Agent of the S.H.I.E.L.D. with the Hoff. And it does have that quality, which is, it's so bad, it's a bit, you know, you can get, yeah. I'm not going to say good. No. But you can get some enjoyment out of it, can't you? So when Ben Grimm turns into the Thing, and he's actually smaller than the buffed out actor, you just can't help but get some kind of joy out of that. And it just is funny. Whereas this, I think, is a technically well-made movie, you know, in terms of the way it looks. It's consistent with the aesthetic that it's going for. You know, it's absolutely aimed at kids. If you see how it's presented, I think the cinematography is good. I think some of the special effects are really good. Again, I mixed up the dates in my mind. I think Spy Kids came out early 2000s, so it wasn't, you know, I think I'd forgive this movie a little bit more if it was a bit earlier, but I don't know really how innovative it was. But like I say, it was absolutely going for that look, and I think it nailed it. But there were no real moments that you could look at and sort of enjoy because they're so bad. You know, some of the naming, as we found out before, you know, Inspector Detector. We had, you know, Racer X, you know, who turns out to be the brother Rex. You know, the main character is called Speed Racer. You know, and it's just like, oh my God, this is awful. And like you say, it could be written, you feel like, by a 4-year-old, but it's not enough to just give you that enjoyment. But I do. There are certain movies that I watch and I just think there is no audience for this. How have you got money to make this? And I do know that there's a lot of hate out there for this movie. And like I said it before in our main review. If you're going in expecting something on the order of The Matrix in any way, shape or form, then I can imagine you're going to be sorely disappointed, and that would manifest itself as hatred for this movie. But I do think some people clearly have a nostalgia for it. But also, I think some kids could actually watch this. And it's not, forget all of the political intrigue. And I think that's, for me, where it really fails. Get rid of all that stuff. Simplify it. If you took that script about, you know, and you had a serious movie, and there was the whole double cross, and you've got, you know, the races being fixed, and you've got the underdog who just wants to race, you know, stick Tom Cruise in it, Days of Thunder style or something like that. You know, I could see that might work especially if you had it as an 80s film, definitely work, but not in a kids' movie. I just think it was too complicated. But the reason I think kids could still enjoy this is purely for the race sequences and set pieces. I think they could watch that and quite enjoy it. The film is way too long. It shouldn't be any longer than 90 minutes, really. And again, I kind of blame the scripting for that, the writing. It just didn't need to be that convoluted. But because I think there is someone, not me, I will never watch this movie again. But I think there are people out there who could enjoy this. I'm not quite going to send it to the Phantom Zone. I'm going to send it to Hell's Kitchen.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And I understand that, Dave. I actually think, as you've explained it, if this was an R-rated film with the style and everything else, and there was proper gore and wanton death, like Mad Max, because some of the scenes are a bit Mad Maxy, but watered down, then it would work, but it can't because of the origin of what it is. It's a children's comic. But I think if they went full on gore with that style, we might have had a whole different film in our hands.
Well, not even with the style, so forget the way it looks. But if you just had something like Days of Thunder. So it was live action, but forget all the goofy effects, all the special effects and everything. It's just race cars, just hardly any special effects at all. I think that script could be, worked into a decent movie.
Yes, I agree.
But it's a combination of the script and the cinematography. For me, it just doesn't work.
No, it does. That's what I meant. You don't take serious any of the bits that's serious in the film. You can't take it because of the surroundings and the way it's being shot and the colours and everything. They don't mix, unfortunately. But yeah, no, good score, Dave. Very, very good score.
But I have to say, I'm sorry. So it was Tony that had Tony Farina who'd suggested that we do this one. I'm glad we've seen it. I didn't know that this thing was out there. And in our comprehensive cataloguing of all these movies and TV shows that we're working through, I'm glad we've caught this one. But by God, I'm glad it's over.
Yeah.
And I can only apologise to Tony. I know you love it. So Tony gave it an Atlantis and clearly has a lot of love for this movie. And that is brilliant. And I'm sure there are other people out there who feel the same as well.
Yeah, yeah. There is, Dave. Like I say, it's everyone has their opinion. Like I said, there's loads of stuff we've done that I'm sure people don't agree. So, no.
Venom. I think we enjoyed Venom, didn't we? And all the critics were like, this is rubbish.
Yeah, and I've got friends who didn't like Venom, so I get it. And Tony, please forgive me. And if you want to follow me on Twitter at Chris Phelps78 or through the normal at Comics in Motion P, and you can give me as much abuse or let's have a chat about why you like it and after you've listened to the podcast. But big thanks to Tony as well for suggesting it. And also, Dave, any of our other listeners, if you do want to suggest something that we review and we can talk about, then please contact us again on Twitter at Comics in Motion P, Comics in Motion Podcast on Facebook, or if you want to email the show, it's comicsinmotionpodcast@gmail.com. And honestly, myself and Dave are happy to slot it in our schedule if it's something that's based up within the comic realms, definitely. To top that off, please have a look at our back catalogue in case it's something we've already reviewed as well, please, guys, because there is 65 episodes of us reviewing stuff.
Doesn't it seem like we're hardly making a dent, though?
We are.
There's so many, and they keep throwing them at us. So this month we've got Shazam coming up, we've got Hellboy, and Avengers Endgame, coming up in April. So they're just not stopping at all. So we will eventually watch them all, I'm sure, but it's a long time away from then.
No, and we obviously like doing the new stuff in the cinemas. We always say, and it's our sort of mission statement, is we will always try and go and review them, won't we, within the first week or so, just because, one, we enjoy it, and to get it out there for you guys. We know we spoil it. We do say at the top, but if you are undecided, it is always good to listen to what we have to say. Well, sometimes. So please, follow in, give us the feedback. We're getting some great, to be honest, Dave, we're getting some great interactions on social media now. like the polls that you've put up, the tweets we both put up, we are getting people asking us questions and that, and we're getting emails to the show now. So this audience and leap of listeners that we've gained since Christmas is helping us improve as well, guys. So just keep all the feedback coming and all the suggestions for us both.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, I think we've run quite long tonight. We've certainly had a few laughs, but I think now it's time that we should make like a shepherd and get the flock out of here.
Cannonball has hit with a crying to the butterfly sir.
Look, here! This is the sparrow!
Cannonball clearly using a spear hook.
That crosses the Hall of Fame.
Not to mention what it might do to Rome.